Well, I don't know if you guys who are just listening can tell, but I'm donning my Blue Spirit shirt for this episode. So I'm not a diehard fan of this or something. I got put on my actually glasses for this.
Oh no,
episode.
I don't like diehard fans of anything.
I am not that far removed, but I am obviously a very big fan of the original. So this is going to be a hard one because this was something that I had to will myself into just ignoring the source material for. Because you kind of have to. I think everyone needs to do that when they go into a live action remake of something.
Yes, I do agree with that. It's really hard to separate two things when one of those things is very beloved. So even, any sort of adaptation, there's that danger of ruining the original. And I don't mind adaptations so much as long as it's good. If it's a good adaptation, yay, you did a good job. I am very big on making it your own, though. I'm not crazy about sticking to something so precisely because you don't want to, anger the fans. I hate that term when you want to do it for the fans. It's no, just make something good. It doesn't have to be for the fans. Just make a good story, because you can pander all you want to the fan base and it'll be atrocious. Well,
yeah, if you pander, then it really does it begs the question, why are you remaking it? Because no matter how much you pander, you're gonna constantly compare. So you might as well make it your own thing, and that's the crux behind this whole remake. Is what are they trying to accomplish here?
I hope that fans say this is the live action adaptation that we've always wanted.
I thought that this show was going to be more like, I don't want to say Game of Thrones, but I thought the production value, the politics, all that, trying to age up the source material and lend itself to an older audience, that would have been more about that kind of material. Instead, it's still very much like the original. In terms of themes, in terms of story beats, but it's missing things, and that's where my actually tone is going to come out, because
interesting.
I do feel like it lacks identity for me as I was watching this show.
Okay,
so,
I'll actually disagree with you there. I think this is a very interesting remix that doesn't nail it. There's 2 horrendous episodes that made me almost want to stop just watching the show, and I thought oh god, is it going to get worse from here? Maybe I should just quit while I'm ahead. But thankfully, I think it catches itself in the end, and it becomes its own thing while still being recognizable to the original fans and changing things where it needs to.
For me personally, I didn't really see a need for this. But for what we got, I didn't necessarily mind it. I do think it's inferior. I mean, that's a given, right? And I was trying to put my let's just pretend my brain just wiped out 3 seasons of animated gold, and just could appreciate this show. I didn't think it was bad, but it didn't excel in any particular way. And that was me really trying to isolate myself away from the source material. If I just watched this blindly, I would have thought, okay, it does feel rushed at times. It does feel very Netflix, and I don't know how to best describe that. It feels like a very studio meddled show at certain parts. It really does feel like, this. You can feel some sort of exec telling them, you need to put this in there because all our shows have these story beats, these drama moments.
We didn't make something that sort of alluded to it, but only took the title. We made Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I don't know if I see that. I see more of creators and writers who realize that they're working with beloved source material and they don't want to upset anyone, so they try to put in everything. And you can't do that with 8 like 40 to 50-minute episodes, so they had to remix. And I think the remixing that they did works overall. But I think it fails in 2 particular episodes, like I mentioned before. So I don't see studio meddling. I think the fact is they took on this big challenge, and because they didn't want to upset anybody, they're like, all right, well, we just have to have everything. Hey, remember these characters? Well, now it's all happening at the same time. And if you don't remember the source material, it's like, okay, sure, yeah, that kind of makes sense. They need to go from here to here. They meet these characters. But then when you think about it, it's like, why are a brother and sister in the cave of 2 lovers? Like,
by themselves. By
themselves. Like, that doesn't feel right.
Ding, 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 ding.
To get my body understanding those things and like ready for by the end of the show where I really like.
So I think that like the way that they were able to make the story beats of the original work to the show, to this format, actually it does work. I actually did appreciate that. There are some creative decisions that were made I didn't love, and I think it has to do with some of the characterization.
Yes. Oh boy, some of these characters. Some a lot.
I'd say almost all. I think every character is wooden.
I'll heavily disagree with you.
Really?
I like a lot of the acting. I hate a lot of the writing, though.
Oh, that's what I mean. Now, I'm not talking about the acting, right? Because child actors, can't blame them for that. I think that especially the actor Sun Hwan Lee, who plays Iroh from Kim's Convenience, like he does a phenomenal job. The actor who plays Zuko also does a great job, and
Dallas Liu,
their great relationship, great. Their characterization is probably the strongest in the whole show. Otherwise, I felt like I think the writing behind the characters are a lot weaker.
Oh yes,
all around.
Most definitely. They nerfed Katara, which is so weird. It's funny. I was watching some interviews and they were saying like, oh, on set, Kyo Wen Teo, I believe her name is, the actress who plays Katara. They were saying, oh, she's definitely Katara. She's like the mother to all of us. And I did feel that at all from the writing that they gave her. And she's just so soft-spoken and timid, and she is just not a personality at all. Not to the discredit of the actress, because you work with what you have, but she's not doing anything really. It's so strange how they decided to do that to such a very pivotal, outspoken character.
Yoentio didn't only perfectly portray Katara on the screen, it turns out that she also managed to channel her character in real life, because here's what her co-stars think about her.
We have little sis here, but she's also mom.
I feel like everyone's a lot more like the characters. I'm not trying to dismiss the acting. I think the acting's fine. But I'm looking at Aang and like he is not playful. He is kind of like just always a worrywart. And it's they really toned down his joy. That was something we complained about with the live action. There's just no joy in any of those characters. And here, at least there's playful bickering. There's jokes sometimes, but they're just all so dour. And what I got out of this after watching it is, yes, you're right. It seems like they are trying to mature this a little more. So instead of TV Y7 like the original, this is like TV 14. Sure,
maybe TV MA. That's I believe they said they were going for that. And so the fact that this takes place during wartime, it really does feel like all the characters are just suffering from PTSD. And they don't really want to make them too happy because Aang is dealing with the genocide of his people. And then Prince Zuko, he's dealing with, like the fact that his father like permanently scarred him and banished him. Like they're taking all these things that in animated form you can kind of poke fun at and, maybe make lighthearted at times. But now when you add it into a live action setting, I don't think they want to have these characters be too funny or too, I don't know.
Too goofy? Maybe
they don't want to. Yeah, they don't want them to be too goofy in this wartime setting. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, that's the thing though. Like, if it's taken too seriously, then it's too removed from the original, right? I mean, look at the Shyamalan version. It's boring. It's like it takes itself way too seriously.
Yeah. There's that balance. So it's weird because the live action movie is just nothing, no joy, like we said, and then the animated version is very fun and lovable, and then this is a weird in between. I don't hate it. I wish. Because I feel those actors really did a good job at embodying the characters, but then the dialogue, I think, took away from their original version. So
sure.
They're doing something different, and I didn't hate it. So I think it's just me having to separate myself from what I like about the original and just thinking like, okay, well, this is a more mature version. You know, like, sure, maybe they're just toning everybody down.
Well, in terms of aging up the show for a different audience, you see, like I've been hearing from my wife saying that, like, oh, you can't dismiss it for the fact that like it's trying to age it up because maybe they're trying to cater towards fans of the show, you know, people who grew up with the original and now watching it as an adult. And I don't really buy that argument because, like, if you're a fan of the original, you might not appreciate it as much. I really do think that the target demographic for this is to target a new, like, people who have not seen the original at all. And in that regard, like, sure, you have to take certain liberties with some of these characters just to make sure that it isn't a one-to-one transcribing what the original was all about. Like some creative decisions, like, you know, Iroh being a little bit more conflicted about his loyalties and alliances. I actually thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, he's not like the original
Wise
show.
sage.
He's not just the wise sage.
Have you got a plan yet?
The plan is to go in and capture the Avatar once and for all.
So no plan.
I'm working on it, Uncle.
Otherwise, like, they take some beloved characters from the original show who are fun and, you know, quirky, and they just straight up make him an asshole. And I fucking hated that. It was a bastardization.
Everything that happens in Omashu is the worst. Those 2 episodes are the worst. I don't know what happened there.
Karsh was so amazing to work with.
I think I was on set for like school or something, and I just stopped by and watched, and like he literally took my breath away. Like, it's insane.
He is like the coolest guy.
I loved his commitment to the role, though.
It's weird. I feel that he's the only character that they really change dramatically. Like, everybody else is,
pretty consistent,
for the most part, true to their original, minus what we've been saying about their dialogue and you know, other minor stuff. Like, Boomy's, I don't know what happened with him. Like, somebody doesn't like Boomy in that writing room.
That was sick! Yo! Dude, that's ridiculous.
So the characterization, sure, it's its own thing. I think what really suffers in this adaptation is the inner character relationships. It's just not very strong at all. I just don't buy a lot of the relationship between certain characters. Like, there's no rapport between Aang and Katara. There's barely any rapport between Sokka and Katara. You know, like that.
Yeah. I think
I don't buy them as friends.
Right. I think intentionally they're not trying to ship Aang and Katara just yet. You know, like, because as soon as you see them together in the original, like, he's in love with her. Like, he's just starry-eyed for her. And here, they actually never really do go into any sort of romantic interest, like, at least from what I can recall. So I think they're just intentionally trying to, you know, downplay that and not have some of that stuff. But then, the brother and sister stuff with Katara and Sokka,
it's still not strong. That's what I mean. Like, all 3 of them, I never found them to be like best of buddies. Like, I didn't see a growth from them just meeting in the iceberg to becoming best of friends at the end of this journey. It's like, it feels kind of weak, in my opinion.
I think the best episodes are when it feels like people can just talk with each other, and it's not really about the plot. It's more character-driven stuff. So, like you mentioned, everything with Zuko and Iroh, like, that's probably the strongest with the character bonds. Like, I think the show did a good job at retaining that, and then also the actors' relationships are really good as well. So I really like Dallas Liu, actually. Like, I thought he was really good as Zuko. Like, he he wasn't so angry all the time. Like, he didn't have that anger that Dante Bosco like over exuded, but he was good at feeling really conflicted with like everything, especially because Daniel Day Kim is like the worst father ever. As far
you mean Lorozai, not Daniel Day Kim the person, right?
Yeah.
We'll put that on record right now. Like Daniel,
Right.
You know, we love you. I think that worked pretty well. I mean, everything I found it really strange that they put in Azula here, because the original you don't have Azula at all in the first season.
Yeah.
But here it's like we spent a lot of time with Azula, and it's like, but it doesn't really go anywhere. She's not integral to the story whatsoever. Like they try to weed her in.
It's all set up though. That's what they're trying to do, because in the original, in season 2, she just comes out of nowhere. So I think her setup here works.
She's a little too angsty for me. Like less menacing, more angsty.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need to change her too much. Like in fact, like I think this version of her is more like unsure of herself, a little bit more.
Well, it's Fire Lord Ozai. He's playing the two against each other.
Right.
He's emotionally manipulating both of them, and I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to give Fire Lord Ozai more of a character, as opposed to I am just evil emperor who wants to take over the world. He's also this really weird, manipulative, toxic dad who's putting his children against each other, and he's sending them out into the world and setting them up for failure. Oddly enough.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't even think of it like that, but that we have a lot more screen time of the actual Fire Lord. So I mean, the main villain. Hey, for those of you who didn't watch this or they watched the original, the main villain of the show. So that totally makes sense. I'm very curious if they're going to do more of this. But before we get there, let's talk about the action.
You and the backflips, Gordon. I hate to break it to you guys. We had like a wire rig set up.
Did you have to do prep for that?
I would just drill backflips. And they'd be like, we're gonna go higher on this one, flip slower, over and over and over again for hours.
You're just having fun all the time.
No, man, that was tiring.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Who's the actor who played Zuko? I forgot his name. Daniel
Dallas Liu.
Dallas Liu. Great. He's awesome.
He's been in martial arts since he was 5. He has a background in Taekwondo. So does Gordon Cormier. And Ian Owsley also has a background in martial arts. Like all three of them, and they're children actors. So all of them, I mean, Dallas Liu is the star. Like he can do so many of those jumping spinning kicks. I was just shocked that he's just jumping and spinning all over the place.
Yeah, it's really him doing it.
I was really, really surprised. And then the actress who plays Katara, Kyo Wen-tio, she did boot camp. So she only got 6 weeks of training.
That's fine. I don't have any fault in any particular performer, and especially given that, I get it. It's a very tall ask. Let's find some children who are ethnically appropriate to the characters from the source material, and also they need to know martial arts. That's a very big ask. And they need to know how to act. So I think this is fine. I think it's you can't ask for the moon and in everything.
What was the first thing you learned in bending boot camp?
Oh, La Toy. Bowing before you go onto the mat.
Okay, but that has nothing to do with the actual way that the action is shot. There's a lot of extreme close-ups. In fact, I sometimes forget there's bending in the show. Because
you forget? I think that sometimes they just fill the screen with fucking special effects.
I mean. It's so overblown with just walls of fire in your face. I'm like, are people bending that? Like, what's happening? I don't know what's going on. It's just like a wall of earth comes up from the ground and it just obscures the whole screen.
I was thinking that they prevised the fight scenes and they didn't take into consideration where the special effects would be. Like, hey, look, we're throwing these fancy moves at each other to emulate, the elemental bending, and then we'll add it in post. But when you don't storyboard that to see where the effects are going to be, the effects artists are just going to throw it anywhere. And then you just have wind, you have water, and then fire just all over the screen. It is so messy. So maybe they're doing that because they're also maybe trying to hide the limitations of the actors. Not just editing, maybe with special effects. So like, oh, you can't see, like, maybe they made a mistake somewhere. So it's like, okay, special effects on top.
Oh man, but there's so many extreme close-ups. Like the amount of times that there's mid-fight and then suddenly like we're in everyone's armpits. And like, what the hell? Like, why are we so close? Like, it's bending. Like we should be seeing everything from a wide shot. In fact, the show, everything should be a wide shot, because it's not. This is an exception to to the rule. It's like this. They're not just the actors. It's the effects that are happening around them. Every single shot should have been a wide shot.
Anytime you have projectiles, it should have been wide, and then as you get closer, you can bring the camera closer. That makes sense. So something I noticed, which wasn't apparent in the original, which I did like. I'm not sure if this was intentional. So you have everybody doing their elemental bending. They're shooting their elements at each other in these fights, and then as you notice, when they get closer, they stop bending, and it just becomes hand-on-hand.
Right. I noticed
and
that
I was
too.
like, oh, that's interesting. That makes sense. That's almost like if like you're in a shootout and then you switch maybe to hand-to-hand or knives. It's like, you can't really shoot each other in the face. It's not equilibrium. But then, they switch to hand-to-hand. I was like, oh, that's really neat. That's a nice little thing that I think they probably added.
That's when I feel like the choreography shined the most.
Yes.
Because there's no distractions. I mean, it's not too close. It's a point where you can see the actors, the performers make contact with one another, and it still looks good. But it's just the bending. But here's the thing: I will still say it is definitively better than the other live action that apparently doesn't exist.
No, not at all.
What do you mean?
The overall action and the martial arts is so much better in the live action movie.
In the 2010?
Yes.
Really?
This series.
You watched it more recently than
I did. Yeah, it's weird. Like it's not good in there, but I think.
But it's more clear, right?
It's more clear. All the special effects are still more clear, and the lighting is so much brighter and more vivid.
Yeah.
I know what they're doing, and this happens a lot with VFX CGI. You shoot in the dark because the CGI always looks better.
Let me take that back a little bit. The 2010 movie, it was worse in the regard that it was just slow. It was very, very slow. I remember the visual effects being a lot more I don't know, it didn't feel like a lot of impact to it. But you're right. I do remember it being a little bit more clear. So I prefer it here more. However, it's little things here and there kind of nagged me as I was watching this version, right? I didn't realize that part of the problem of live action airbending is that you can't see the air. So I'm like, wow, I never thought of it like that. But they really are just airbending, but nothing's happening.
They have to fill. Yeah, well, I mean, air VFX is adding swooshy lines or something like that. So, man, when in that first episode, when it's the air nomads versus the firebenders, it is it's air and it's fire and it's nighttime. It is a goddamn mess. You can't see anything.
All you see is red on blue, dark blue. That's all you see. It's a really dark shade of blue because it's night, and then bright red every so often. You can't see the airbending because all you see are people being wire pulled. that's the effect
pretty
of
much,
airbending.
Yeah, pretty much.
But all in all, I thought the action department was just still kind of weak.
So I thought the martial arts fight scenes and the airbending encounters were pretty forgettable. I think the only good one was probably the Agni Kai between Ozai and Zuko. That's Daniel Day Kim and Dallas Liu. They actually get it. It's an okay fight. It's not the best, but it's probably the best one in the series. Yeah. I'll say I think the action in the end gets pretty good though. You can see all the budget there. I like the interpretation of the giant fish at the end.
Sure.
The Avatar and the moon spirit and all that fun Godzilla stuff. Like, I think that's the best looking VFX in the whole series, because like it's so like spotty every now and then. Like, sometimes it looks okay, and then other times it looks god awful.
Right.
I was like, oh no, this is all over the place. But then I like the ending. I thought the siege on the north was done pretty well.
In terms of visual, action wise, I think the drama.
Some of the CGI was pretty good, I thought. And then it's a Netflix budget, so
sure.
I could see all the budget went onto that last part.
Man, like then it makes me really feel really bad for complaining about the set design and the costumes. Man, it feels like they just came out of a Spirit Halloween as it's cosplay, so clean. Right? Yeah,
it's really expensive cosplay.
It's expensive cosplay, but like I think everyone's been complaining about this. Like pretty much from every voice has been airing that like everyone's too clean. Like they look like they just got their clothes laundered, like and they just
doesn't look lived in.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it is. It isn't lived in. Like the fact that even the 2010 version, it looks like what people might actually wear, and like what the damage would to their attire as they go through. They're hiking. They're in the mountains. They're on top of a flying bison flying in the sky. Like their clothes should be a little tattered and dirty.
That's one of the few things I did like about the 2010s is the costume design. It's adapted for live action. Yeah. They didn't just do 1-to-1 with a cartoon, because you can't do that because it looks silly. And then look what happens with the Netflix adaptation. It looks a little silly. I think some of the costumes work sometimes. I like the Kyoshi Warriors. Their costumes translated well, I thought.
I wish
it's just
all
so angular.
The colors in general are way too saturated. To the point where that looks like it's out of a cartoon, right? Like look at Aang. He is a bright pumpkin. Why is he so orange? He's extremely vibrant, and it's like he is just sticking out like a sore thumb. Like quite literally, looks like a cosplay. This is where we start going to nitpicky territory. But I did think the visuals all in all suffered because we are trying to quite literally lift the cartoon and put it into. We'll put humans into the cartoon look rather than taking the characters and then modifying the look to look more realistic. I think that overall the look of the show is kind of off-putting for me. Yeah, so I don't know what else to add to this. This was the live-action Avatar. I started with this review by saying this, and I'll end it with it. I don't think that the problem is it's not that I don't like the show. It's not that I don't like the effort. I just don't need it. I didn't need this. This made me think of all the Disney live action remakes. Is I don't need these. Why do I need these? Unless it's really adding something to the original or elevating it in any ways. But how can you take something that's already so animated, so vibrant and enjoyable, and then you put it in human form, live action form, and you actually have to work within the confines of reality and physics, right? So I felt like that was not necessary.
Minus the really two bad episodes I spoke about with Omashu, I was pretty happy with everything, because the whole time I was expecting to just get a 1-for-1 adaptation and be kind of bored with it. But I was having fun watching them change things around and consolidate or pivot to try and encapsulate everything into these 40 to 50 minute episodes as opposed to the shorter 20 to 22 minute episodes. So I liked it. I didn't think there was anything too bad about it. It was just a good watch on the weekend that I could laugh at or poke holes in the the various missteps. But at the end of the day, I still found myself enjoying it overall.
We made sure to pay respects, but at the same time, you know, what's the point of making a live action if you're just going to go line for line, and scene for scene? So I think we did a phenomenal job of doing that, and so
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see.
All right, so I think I'm more of the. I'm always more of the negative side. Yeah, I can't really recommend it, but I mean, you can still enjoy it for what it's worth. I still want to give it that, but I wouldn't watch this again. Like, I definitely wouldn't watch it. I don't really know if I need a season 2, but I will say, if this is what it takes to get people on board and, you know, be on the Avatar train, like I say, you know, like this is a good thing, because, you know, I love the world that that the Avatar universe is in. I love, you know, like anything that would support them in any ways. This isn't what I'm into, but if it gets people, it gets their butts to sit down and watch it and maybe like get interested in the other content like Legend of Korra or maybe the original show, like, or supporting the original creators and making their new content, the new movies. I'm all on board for that.
I would say that if they could fix the martial arts, like the fight scenes, because that's one of the things I really enjoyed about the original animated show is like they got martial arts consultants in order to make the animated martial arts fights look good. People throwing elements at each other while also doing forms that are specific to different martial arts styles. I think if they do a better job at filming it and composing it and just making it feel like a fight scene as opposed to just people throwing fireballs and whatever at each other, then I think it could elevate it. Because sometimes, you know, we say that, oh, this movie sucked, but it had good action. So at least you remember the action, right? So if everyone is going to say like, oh, I don't like this adaptation of the original source material, but the action's good, then it's like, okay, well, at least there's that.